Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about how it is that I got here. This is a question that I get all the time, and the truth is that my path was not linear in any way, so it's really important to me to speak about it and to show others that it's definitely possible for you to pursue these dreams, even if you've had or currently still having obstacles along the way. So I also have my different channels linked here. So if any of you want to follow me or check out my YouTube channel or my blog, all of that is listed right there. All right, let's get started. So a little bit about my background. I have loved space since I was little. I don't really remember a time where I haven't been really interested. I would go outside to the backyard and just look up at the stars. And I had so many questions. I wanted to know how it was that scientists and astronomers, physicists so long ago were looking at the same things that I was looking at and were able to figure out all of the amazing things that they were able to figure out. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to know how they did it. I wanted to do that kind of stuff myself. And I eventually attended UCLA. I got a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. While I was there, I got my internship at NASA's Propulsion lab. So I interned for, I believe, about a year and a half. And then I got my full-time job upon my graduation. So I'll talk about all of that. So first, when I was in high school, I was having a lot of different financial and personal problems. So I had to make the decision to stay back. I did not go to a four-year university right away. I attended a community college where I was able to knock out some college classes. And at the end of it, I actually was able to also receive two full ride scholarships, which basically changed the course of my life. Because at the time, I did not have any way to pay for college. I did not know how I was going to do it. And I just worked really hard, and I sort of just adopted this mindset of I'll figure it out because I'm not dropping out of school. This is what I want to do. Um, when I decided to go to community college, it was a really difficult choice because there's a lot of stigma that surrounds community colleges, especially for me. When I was in high school, I was a great student. I was a straight A student, had more than a 4.0, graduated in the top percentage. I believe I was in the top 5% of the entire state. So choosing to go to community college was difficult for me at the time. And now looking back, it is the best choice that I could have ever made. Not only did I come out with absolutely no student debt, two full rides that paid for my tuition, my books, my rent, all of my bills. And I actually met my fiance at this community college. So totally changed my life. Now, I want to talk about UCLA because UCLA taught me a lot of things about myself. When I was here, I thought everything is going to be okay. Everything is fine now. I have my scholarships. I can finally take care of all of these things that I need to take care of. And my responsibility now is me, which is the first time that that had happened because while I was in high school and community college and dealing with all of these things that I spoke about, I was busy taking care of my family, making sure that my mom was okay, making sure that all of my siblings are going to be set before I left. So once I finally left and for the first time was on my own, it was really, really hard. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I didn't, and I don't mean that in a, I don't know how to feed myself. I don't know how to cook for myself. It wasn't that. It was that for so long, my priority had been other people, particularly my family, that when it came time to focus on myself, it was really difficult for me to do that. And I had a pretty difficult time adapting to UCLA, particularly because UCLA is on the quarter system. So that means we have 10 weeks as opposed to the semester, which I can't remember how many weeks that is anymore. I think it's like 17. But yeah, so you have 10 weeks. Everything is extremely fast paced. You have one midterm and one final. And so it's a really difficult thing to get thrown into
especially because when you transfer in, you don't have any of those other electives or buffer classes to take. Everything you're taking are your engineering classes. So all of my course load was, everything was an engineering course load. And I did the first thing that all of us as students do when we are running out of time and when we're just stressing out and we don't know how to deal with the pressure of these classes, which is I let go of taking care of my needs. So that includes sleeping. I was sleeping very, very little. That includes food. A lot of us, well, the first thing that will change when we are dealing with a very stressful situation is our eating. We will eat in very unhealthy ways or not eat at all. So that's what I was doing. I stopped eating. I think I was eating maybe once a day, and it was pretty much just to get the hunger to go away. And it was a mix of, I don't have time for this. So cooking or going somewhere to go get food is going to take all the time away that I need for school. And just that stress that I was feeling made me not feel hungry anyway. And on top of that, I was drinking a lot of caffeine, drinking a lot of coffee, energy drinks. All of that coupled together was a recipe for disaster. I was in a really bad spot. So the first thing that I needed to do if I wanted to get out of this situation and I wanted to actually succeed here was to understand that these things that I was doing were not helping me, were not making more time for me so that I could study. They were actually just very toxic habits that were stopping me from being present and from being successful while I was studying. And that's why I was doing bad in school. That's why I was having such a hard time actually catching up and fully adapting. Because not only do I have all of these things that I need to take care of academically, but I'm also not giving myself the upper hand and hurting myself and slowing myself down by adopting all of these habits. So it's really important for all of you to remember that when you're under a situation like this, where maybe you're struggling in a class and you feel like what you need to do is to study more, that's really not the case. What you need to make sure that you're doing, number one, is taking care of yourself. Because if you're not taking care of yourself and your needs, the needs of your body, so that you can have the maximum amount of energy and the maximum amount of just that necessary focus for you to be truly present and productive while you're studying, it's not going to work out. I can promise you that. I have been there. I know so many people that have been there. So please, if you take anything away from this talk, I want you all to remember that when you're in a situation like this, what you need to do more than ever is make sure you're sleeping, make sure you're eating well, and make sure that you're giving your body what it needs. So this led to my difficulties with time management, because I was just doing all of these things in order to try to make more time for studying. But then while I was studying, I was just so tired, and I just wasn't really being successful. It took me so long to get my homeworks done. And it all goes back to the same thing, right? I wasn't present. I was exhausted, so I couldn't really think straight. And that meant that it would be the night before and I still hadn't finished my homework. And at this point, I don't really have time anymore. So let me just try to get it done as fast as I can. So that's why it was really important for me to learn how to prioritize these things, prioritize sleeping, prioritize healthy eating, prioritize minimizing energy drinks and coffee consumption as much as possible, so that I could overcome all of that and truly be successful. I started prioritizing as much as I was prioritizing doing my homework. So to me, even now, getting my nightly sleep, getting my hours in is as important to me as getting my work projects done, because my work projects aren't going to get done successfully if I'm not giving myself these other things that my body needs, which we all as humans need in order to function. So once I finally was able to do that, I was able to get my GPA. My first quarter at UCLA, I got, I believe it was a 2.7. And then my last quarter, I got almost a 3.9. I think it was like a 3.89 or something like that. So what I changed was what I already mentioned, prioritizing myself and my health first. It definitely works. It is really, really important. And honestly, I think that it's also what gave me the courage to finally apply to this job that I've been dreaming of my whole life. Because if I had thought about doing something like this during that first quarter when I was just drowning and so overwhelmed, and there was no way that I could imagine doing a job on top of that. So having changed all of those things allowed me to successfully pursue this internship. When I applied to the Jet Propulsion Lab, I applied multiple times. I applied at a career fair. I went to a conference and I applied there. I applied online a couple times as well. I submitted my resume wherever I could. And 5 months later, I heard back from the lab. It took a very long time. And I interviewed. The interview went great. I prepared like I've never prepared for something before. It was definitely a life-changing experience for me, that interview, because I knew how much was riding on it. So I worked really hard. I remember I made a Word document where I wrote so many questions that I had for my interviewer about the lab, about the work, about the missions, because I'm just so passionate about the work that I thought, okay, well, even if I don't get this job, I'm still on the phone with a NASA engineer. So I'm going to ask him everything that I want to know and treat this as my little interview to them as well, because I'm very genuinely curious about the work. And that worked out for me very, very well. We had a great conversation. The man who interviewed me, he has since then invited me to do more talks to other schools. And we have a great working relationship to this day. So the interview is extremely important. Don't underestimate it. And it's really important to get prepared for them. Now, I want to talk about what it is that I do at work. So at work, I am in charge of what is called ground support equipment. We work on building, designing, and testing equipment that simulates our spacecraft in order to test flight electronics. But that's kind of wordy. So what does that mean? It means that we work on creating these systems that pretend to be these spacecraft. These systems are fully decked out with simulations that pretend to be different aspects of whatever mission it is that we're working on. So for example, if we're talking about the Europa Clipper mission, which I'll talk about in a little bit, this mission has different instruments, it has different sensors, it has different things that move in order to move an instrument or maybe move a camera. And so we have to simulate all of that in order to test, for example, the computer. So if we want to test a circuit, what we need to do is make sure that this circuit is connected to everything that it's expecting to be connected to. So if this computer is expecting to receive a certain signal from, say, the camera, we have to make sure that we feed it that signal in order to test that interface. Or if this computer is expecting to send back certain signals to say, hey, this is a warning, or this is all working great, then we have to send those types of signals and send those types of things that it's expecting into it in order to test that out. Another thing that we do is we do something called error injection. So we'll inject different bad things into this board, and because we want to know what is it going to do if we give it something it's not expecting, or if we give it something that's wrong, if we give it something that's out of scope, is it going to just freak out and not know what to do? And now we're halfway to Jupiter and this computer doesn't know what it's doing, it's just stuck on something, right? That's not what we want to happen when we're already halfway to another planet. So that's why it's extremely important for us to test these interfaces, to test these different types of errors, to give it all of these different things and have it tell us, is it working? Is it not? if it works, did we design it correctly? Because it might work under the current design, but maybe that design doesn't do what we thought it did. So all of these things are things that are extremely important for us to test. So that is my job. My job is to help design these simulations along with a software team. So I'm on the hardware side, and we work with the software team in order to come together and create these simulations for the electronics. I have participated in a few different missions already, one of them being the Perseverance rover, which I'm super excited about. I don't know if y'all saw the landing, which happened on the 18th, and then we received footage for the very first time of the sky crane maneuver, which if you haven't seen that, you definitely need to. It is amazing and beautiful. I definitely teared up when I saw that, because technology is just something that I am so passionate about, and especially technology that I had a part in. So this mission was my very first NASA mission. My team and I worked on a board that was needed for testing of the robotic arm. The robotic arm for the Perseverance rover is extremely sensitive. It has these really, really sensitive sensors, which are used to, they're going to be used to help us maneuver the arm. Originally for curiosity, they were necessary for, say we're doing something, or maybe we're drilling, or maybe we're putting our arm against something. These sensors were going to be able to tell us, hey, you're pushing a little too hard, you might damage something. But on Perseverance, these sensors are so much more sensitive, and they're so much better that we actually want to try to use them in order to help us use the arm more effectively. So when we were doing the testing for the arm, I got to go with my mentor. We delivered our circuit that we designed for them. They had the arm mounted in the lab, so it was amazing to be able to deliver something that you had a part in, and then see it be put to use on something as amazing as a robotic arm that is now in Mars. And that was while I was still a student. So I did that while I was an intern at JPL. I've been able to work on different commercial projects as well. JPL is owned by Caltech, which means that we don't only do NASA missions, we do a lot of other different types of missions as well for other companies. And currently I'm working on the Europa Clipper mission, doing ground support equipment, which is this type of work that I mentioned up here. Oh, and by the way, this photo here is right outside what we call the high bay. So this is where we build the different spacecraft. So this is where you would go if you wanted to go take a look at the viewing area for the Perseverance rover. It was really fun for us to be able to see that happen. And whenever they had their first test drive, or they were turning it on for the first time, or all that good stuff, we would all get an email, they're going to turn it on. We'd all run over there and go check it out, or during lunch, go take a look at the rover being tested, being built. And it's a really awesome thing to be able to keep being exposed to this and see it, you know, grow essentially right in front of your eyes day by day. All right, so the Europa Clipper mission, this is the mission that I'm currently assigned to, and it is a really exciting mission. The Europa Clipper is going to conduct a detailed reconnaissance of Jupiter's moon Europa. You can see a photo here. This is kind of what it looks like. It essentially is believed to have a liquid water ocean beneath the icy crust. We can see that the moon is completely frozen over. These little lines that you see are points where the ice may have cracked and then frozen back up again, kind of like what you see in our poles here on Earth. Europa Clipper wants to investigate whether the moon could harbor conditions for life. A big reason why we believe this is due to the ocean that we believe to exist. So we can see this photo here is what we believe to be the composition of the surface, completely frozen over, and then the liquid underneath. We have several instruments on board, which includes a radar that's capable of penetrating the ice because we want to determine the thickness of this icy shell and look for those subsurface lakes. But another really cool thing is that a previous mission has been able to detect what scientists believe to be plumes of water. So if you look at this picture here, we have this water that looks like it's being shot out of the moon, right? So that's what we believe is happening. We believe that Europa is essentially shooting water out of the moon into space. And we want to essentially be able to go over there, take our spacecraft and fly through one of these plumes of water and use some of our instruments to be able to taste this water. We want to know what is in here. What is this? Can we find anything in this water? This is going to help us out a lot because if we're able to fly through that water and take these samples of water, then we won't necessarily need to, land, drill, try to get to that water, get that water out. This just makes it so much easier. There is a lander mission that has been proposed, so we do hope that that goes through. And a lander would essentially land on Europa and just help us get closer and help us figure out more about this amazing moon and get us more science. One of the really cool things that I love about JPL is our emphasis on planetary science. We want to know more about our solar system. We want to know more about the planets. We want to know more about their moons. We want to know why is there water here, or was there water here? If there's not water here anymore, why? And what can that tell us about our own planet, right? So we can look at a place like Mars, and we know that it used to have water. We know that it used to look a little bit similar to Earth back in the day. And by back in the day, I mean years and years and years and years ago. But what happened, right? So why did it lose its magnetic field? Why is it something that could possibly happen to our own planet? So these are the questions that we have and that we hope to answer with these different missions that we are doing. Okay, so now I want to switch gears for a little bit and talk about a different topic that is very important to me, and that is being a woman of color in engineering. So the experience is definitely not the same, and it's really important to learn how to navigate and deal with negative comments, because unfortunately, I don't know a single woman in STEM who has not heard one before. And although times are changing and they are changing for the better, it is not there yet. I definitely have faced a lot of microaggressions. Microaggressions are not necessarily direct, right? So it's not so much as going to your face and saying, you don't belong here. It's more subtle. And that's why they're so difficult to deal with, because when it's so subtle, you don't necessarily even notice it at first that that's what it is. It could be as subtle as you walk into a room and the men in that room look at you like you're lost, or the men in that room might give a little look, right? So these are examples of microaggressions where they're not necessarily looking at you and saying you're not supposed to be here, but you can still feel that that's what they may be thinking. And you can't necessarily call them out in the way that you would somebody that said something blatant, because it's so subtle. So it's very important to learn how to navigate these things, to learn how to deal with them, and to learn how to not let them get to you as well. Because I am not going to quit my job or stop pursuing this field that I love just because someone else that I don't even know and who personally doesn't even matter thinks that I shouldn't be here. And that's something that I've had to learn along the way. It's really unfortunate that as women, we have to deal with this and put up with this. And it's also really unfortunate that me as a female engineer, I have to go around and talk to different women who are interested in the field and tell them the realities of the field, but also to not be afraid of it. I unfortunately do get a lot of messages, a lot of questions from young women saying, I really want to do programming, or I really want to do mechanical engineering, but I'm scared of how I'll get treated. And it's really sad to me that somebody is choosing to not pursue a field that they really want to pursue because of the actions of others. That's why I do the work that I do, because I want to help make things better. I want to help make it more accessible for all of you. I don't want any of you to be afraid into coming in. And that starts with me, that starts with my workplace, that starts with the men around me at work. And hopefully the next woman that comes into my group, she'll feel welcome, right? She won't have to feel like I felt at first. And I think it's also really interesting because I can't lie. I can't lie and say like that it never got to me, or that I've always been just good at it and good at being like, oh, whatever. But a story I want to share is a story that has helped me all my life when it comes to this, because although I am a woman in engineering, I am also a woman of color. So unfortunately, I've had to deal with several types of comments all my life. And the story is, when I was little, my sister, she came to me and she called me stupid. And I remember I started crying my eyes out. I went to my mom and I'm crying, bawling. And my mom was like, what is wrong with you? What happened? Did you hurt yourself? Did you fall? And I was like, no, my sister, she called me stupid. And my mom, she looked at me and then she said, well, are you stupid? And I answered, no. And she said, then why are you crying? If you know you're not stupid, then there's no need to cry. And I use that to this day because I get comments all the time, especially being online and having the following that I do now. I get comments all the time. I get people in my DMs all the time. But I know my truth and I know what I have to offer. So I'm not going to cry about it. That is why I decided it was important for me to put myself out there and to talk to all of you and to share everything that I've learned. Because of course I was scared of coming in, and of course I was scared when I first did come in. And I never went into engineering because I wanted to be a role model. I never went into it because I wanted to be the first woman in a team or the first woman to do this or that. That's not why I did it. I did it because I, as a human being, I'm just truly interested in this field and I truly love what I do. That's why I did it. But when I was actually in the field and looking around and seeing the lack of women and the lack of diversity, I realized, okay, I may not have done it for this reason, but it is important for me to also take up that work. And it really reminds me of this Sally Ride quote that I want to share because it really resonates with me, which is, I never went into physics or the astronaut corps to become a role model. But after my first flight, it became clear to me that I was one. Sally Ride was the first American astronaut, a female astronaut, and it's the same story for her. Like, she didn't become an astronaut because she wanted to be the first female astronaut. She became an astronaut because she, Sally, as a human being, wanted to be one. But once she became one, she realized who I am matters and who I am is very important to other people who are looking at the things that I'm doing. And so that's why that quote is so important to me, because it's the same story with me. I didn't do it because I wanted to get out here and be a role model, but that's what I am. And I am so happy to do this work for you and for all the other women and any other young woman or girl who might be interested in getting into this field. So next, I want to talk about my different channels and what it is that I like to do with my platform. The number one thing that I like to do is honesty. I want to be completely honest, just like I have been with you today. I have told you about my obstacles. I have told you that I struggled with a lot when I was in college. I was not a perfect student. I have never claimed to be one. I had a lot of growth to do, a lot of personal development to do. And I'm not going to hide that from anybody. I don't want anybody to look at me and think, well, of course, she's at NASA because she had a 4.0 and she had a full ride. And it's a natural progression. She just kept succeeding and it makes sense. But that's not what happened. And even when I did get my job and did start as an engineer, I still faced a lot of obstacle and a lot of insecurity that I had to work through. And it's really important for me to be honest with everybody because I don't want anyone to ever look at me and think I can't do that. I'm not different than anybody. I'm not different than you. If it's what you want to do, if it's what you're interested in doing, absolutely go for it. I will be your biggest cheerleader, and that's why I'm here, because I want you to know that if you want to, you can absolutely go for it. And I really want to encourage you to. So I have a story about a couple of people who I've been able to help through my Instagram account. So they sent me a DM. We talked for a few minutes. If I sense that this person needs a little bit more support, then I will offer a phone call, a FaceTime call, because it's really important for me to be there for people who need it, who might not have somebody else in their life who understands what this is like. And I've been able to help a couple people apply to NASA. They've gotten interviews and they have actually gotten the jobs. So it's so cool for me to have been able to directly impact somebody's life, somebody who didn't even think that this was something that was possible for them, who didn't really have that support in their life, right? And I became that cheerleader for them. I told them, yes, you can do this. Yes, you do belong here. If I'm here, you can be here too. And now they're at NASA as well. So that is why I do this. 100%. It is so worth it to me when those are the kinds of stories that I can tell others about my work. I love to teach people about science, about engineering. It doesn't have to be a scary topic. Sometimes it's presented in a scary way. And I think a lot of people do have that fear of it, fear of the math, fear of electronics, for example. But that's why I love to show people that it doesn't have to be that way. It can be fun. It can be approachable. You can do it if you want to. And yes, that's what I'm all about. If you want to be an engineer, if you want to work at NASA, if you want to be a mathematician or a physicist or go wherever it is that you want to go, you can do it. And I think a lot of us are so afraid of getting a no. We're so afraid of applying to something and being rejected for it that we don't apply, which now, because I was like that too, right? But now looking back at it, why do we do this? Because if we're not applying, we are the ones giving ourselves that no. So what changes really if you do apply and then you get that no? Nothing changes. So why not just apply and possibly get that yes? It's really important to trust yourselves, to go for it, to believe in yourselves, and not put words into other people's mouths when you do receive that rejection. You don't know what happened. A lot of us are so quick to jump to a conclusion that it's a no because we're not good enough, that it's a no because we don't belong there. But you don't know the situation. I've hired interns before, and it was one of the hardest things that I've had to do, because when you have these resumes in front of you and they're so amazing and you can only choose one, it really hurts my heart to think that this other person who is getting rejected, but I know for a fact could have done such an amazing job if the position had been open. It really hurts me to think that they might feel this way. So I want you all to remember that anytime you get a rejection, don't make up scenarios in your mind about you not being good enough or it not being for you, because you truly don't know what happened. And that concludes my presentation. I want to thank you all so much for listening to me today. And I hope that you take something with you. I hope you're a little bit more inspired to follow your dreams and to not be afraid of getting those no's. If anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them.